Hey everyone, Kumar here with the Meridian Point. Thanks for joining us live. We are live. This is not a recording. And today we're joined by Reha Malik, an independent technology consultant and leadership coach who's built a career on solving problems. And when she solves them, what does she do? She looks for the next problem to solve. If it's not where she is, she looks for her next home where she can solve problems. Love that. From a database admin working night shifts in a basement to VP of AI and machine learning at one of DC's fastest growing federal contractors, Reha has consistently chosen principles over paychecks. I wish I could say the same for me. Turning down lucrative offers that violated her values around employee autonomy. She pushed early career engineers to Google when her bosses wanted to keep them, and teaches George Mason students what the tech industry actually looks like versus what's in the textbooks. A 2024 Washington Exec Pinnacle Awards finalist for AI Executive of the Year, Reha is currently based in India doing flexible consulting work before returning to the East Coast when it's warmer, because it's really cold right now. She's here to talk about disruption as a career strategy, not just a buzzword. So without further ado, Reha, it's so good to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Kumar. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, always. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. I loved it.
Yeah, you're welcome. It probably didn't quite do you justice, all the things you've accomplished in your career so far.
Oh, no, trust me, it was the other way. I was like, wow, that's me. I can't even believe that.
You know, we were just off before we went live. We were talking about how goofy we are, you know, in our normal lives. I don't know if we want to. Maybe it'll come out. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if it comes out.
It will.
So, Reha, tell me about your basement job working overnight shifts. I won't preface anything you said in our prior conversation. Tell me about that. How did that sort of shape your thinking and your career?
I think for me, so my first job was, I started my career off as a database admin at Freddie Mac. And while most people start with inspiration, I mean, you're fresh out of college, you're like, this is my major, I'm going to do this. And I was a Sybase DBA. And I was on the NOC team. So I was supporting the production systems, and my shifts was like night 8 to morning 8. And I'm talking about 2007, 2008. So crazy. Yeah. Crazy times. And while most people look for inspiration and they're so driven, my mindset from the very beginning was that I was always driven by elimination. I knew very early on, while I didn't know what inspired me at that stage in my life, I really know what I needed to eliminate, right? So that process of elimination worked really well for me in the very beginning. And I knew really early on that I hated basements, right? I loved people. I was not a very, very good Sybase DBA. I mean, it gave me more stress and anxiety than it should have. So for me, I wanted to kind of move away. And when that opportunity arose, I wanted to move away from just pure tech into roles which kind of inspired me to do more. They were more touchy-feely, they were more people-oriented, they had some strategy, and where I could look at the bigger picture, right? My struggle used to always be, how is what I'm doing impacting that bigger picture? And I didn't have that working from that basement. So I wanted to see that end to end. And that is what kind of led me. And essentially, if I were to sum it up, then discomfort became my compass. That's what happened for me.
So whenever you feel discomfort, you're like, okay, looking for that exit. Let's climb out of this basement, the metaphorical basement, and find something better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I've always, to a certain extent, wanted to, it's a dichotomy, right? I want to seek discomfort. I don't want to do repetitive things, but at the same time, I do eliminate very easily. I'm able to know very easily what I don't like versus what I like. I'm not very good at that one.
I mean, that's a good skill to have, because I'm sure people feel discomfort in their jobs and their careers, and They probably learn to live in it, live in the discomfort, or get used to it until such point where it isn't a discomfort anymore. It's just, that's just the way things work around here. I'm gonna deal with it. What would you say to
Exactly.
people in that situation, in that state, if you will?
The state of discomfort?
Yeah, or just acceptance of that discomfort.
I'll talk about it from a personal lens. I think when things become status quo, that is one point when I know that I'm done. I need a change, right? I know it works. Change is never easy. I think you coming from that agile space, Kumar, we've spoken about that so much because we are quote unquote change agents in that role. And you must have seen it firsthand how change is never easy for anybody. Now, some people might adapt to it a little bit easier versus others who are not very attuned to random or rapid change. But it does bring us a little bit of discomfort to everybody. And how we kind of manage to navigate that space of discomfort really becomes one of our intrinsic motivators. Like for me, I want to seek discomfort from the lens of learning something new. If I have done something, or if I was brought in to make a change and I've made that change, and I'm comfortable, that does not drive me. That does not motivate me, right? Redundancy does not motivate me. A status quo does not do that for me. So I seek discomfort there. However, when I'm at discomfort with my principles, which I've established, which I've come through to the process of elimination, I am not very good with that, right? I'm not going to go into an uncomfortable spot just so that I can either be in a job or get a new job.
Yeah.
So
no, that's a great way to think about it. There's this book written by Whitney Johnson, I believe is the author's name. It's called Disrupt Yourself. And in the book, she talks about the half-life of an employee in a company. You start in a company and it's new, it's challenging. Hopefully it's new and challenging. And it's sort of this S curve of this disruption where you're growing initially. And you're learning initially, and you feel like you're contributing initially, and that phase lasts probably a couple of years up until such point where you stagnate, and you begin to question your existence there in that company. What are you doing? Is there room for growth and all that stuff? And generally, the good companies will recognize that and make sure that, especially if the company's big enough, provide opportunities for that person to grow into another role or another department or whatever the case may be, or the person leaves, right? If they're motivated like you are, you have sort of goals like you do, and your focus is to solve problems, and that person doesn't feel like they're really solving problems anymore, they may leave. Does that kind of mirror your sort of experience in the career and in your career?
Yeah, it does. You raised a very important point, Kumar, and that was around how you have it's either people finding that opportunity to leave when they're no longer challenged, or a company or your leadership recognizing that they're constantly keeping you engaged and motivated, right? Motivation is different things for different people at different points in their career. I think if you spoke to me 16 years ago and offered me a job for $5,000 more than what I was making in a year, I would have switched jobs. I genuinely would, right? But now motivation means something else for me. And when you're seeking change or you're seeking opportunities, I think it's very important for you to understand what motivates you. For me, it's always been finding problems to solve, like you'd mentioned. And I have personally had the good luck of finding great mentors in my life who were also my leaders, who have kind of gotten attuned with the way I work and what my motivation is, where they have constantly challenged me to solve newer problems. Or when I brought something up to them and said, hey, there's a problem out there which is lying and nobody is taking ownership of it, and I want to run with it even though I don't have direct authority. They have let me lead without direct authority, right?
Yeah.
Or created that safe space. So I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that in the current world we live in, especially for the agilists in the world, we're going through a period of disruption where the roles aren't what they used to be, right? The jobs that aren't out there that they're used to be, and so that whole industry is being disrupted in a certain sense by AI, and of course you've sort of shifted. You consider yourself a change agent, but now you're shifting into AI technologies and teaching people how to use these technologies. What advice would you give the agilists out there that are struggling to find work?
One thing, Kumar, I've believed in this, is that in the tech space, when it comes to information technology, we've always been disrupted by one technology or the other, right? If you think about the times when project managers were especially famous, and that role was just out there, or for that sake, you had manual QA testers, right? That role was plentiful. And then automation came around, and then the manual QA testing kind of went away. Or if you look at blockchain for the tech folks, I mean, blockchain was such a big thing about 4 years or 5 years ago, and now it's nowhere to be found. In the same way, you had a world pre-agile, but there was still agile. Right? The principles of agility, the principles of safe and Kanban, and all of Scrum, they existed. They just didn't have a process around them, right? With the income of AI, yes, a lot of these roles are getting condensed. I wouldn't say eliminated. You would still need a human element, right? AI can only do logical-based decisioning for now. I mean, you've got deterministic AI and agnostic AI and generative AI. I agree to that. But at the same time, I don't think any one role will get completely eliminated. I think the number of people required to do that role will get greatly reduced. For the agilists, I think it is very, very important for you for this community to come together and start looking at tools. Like, for example, when it came to user journey mapping, right? I have been in workshops where we have actually used the entire whiteboards to do journey maps, right? Now you've got tools like Clarify, which are there in the market, which can create those user journeys on a blink of a button. But then do you have a lot of people who can actually facilitate the creation of that user journey maps through Clarify and other tools like Clarify? Not really. So for agilists to kind of start going into a space where they are great amalgamations of tech, bringing in AI into their toolkit is just another tool in your toolkit. You've got to introduce it, right? We're not going to have as many Scrum Masters, maybe, in the near future, but you're still going to need to have change agents. You're still going to have some sort of a strategic management, program management, coaching in that space. And I think people who change and adopt, there's going to always be room, right?
It's a powerful message. I think that a lot of people are frustrated because there's the lack of jobs out there in the Agile space. But I think there are jobs, there are roles for if you have the right skills, if you change your mindset a little bit, because things aren't going to go back to the way they were. We're always moving forward. We're always being disrupted, and the challenge is to know when you need to disrupt yourself, and that need is probably all the time. You need to disrupt yourself all the time, learn what the new trends are, the new technologies are, stay on the cutting edge. And to your point, the human is always going to be in the loop, at least for the foreseeable future, until AI achieves general, intelligence that is equal or superior to humans, which may come, maybe in our lifetime, maybe sooner. But until that comes, the human needs to be in the loop to make sense of what the AI is doing. To your point about the tool for journey mapping is a good one, right? Because these tools are great if you know how to use them. And
Exactly.
these tools are great if the agilist in you used to do these on a big whiteboard with sticky notes and knows how to use this new tool that uses AI to take gobs of data and turn it into a journey map and to be able to facilitate those discussions. So yeah, that's a great point.
I mean, it happened with me, Kumar, right? I think when we first initially spoken, I'd mentioned to you and folks who go and see my LinkedIn, they'll realize I have every possible Agile certification under the sun.
Yeah.
There was at least whatever was existent about 5 years ago, I had it right at that point. And one of my mentors actually, it was very early and AI had just started coming in. And one of my mentors actually, when I had a conversation with them, they're the ones who asked me to pivot. And they were like, you cannot just continue being in one space. You've got to understand your skill set, right? I'm not a programmer, but I am a technical person by education and by trade. And I happen to pivot into program strategy and program management. And he actually told me, he was like, why don't you kind of try and find a middle ground between the two? Because your strength lies in having those conversations and you've got those people skills of coaching and program management, but you're also somebody who can talk technical, like you can contribute to architecture discussions or solution architecture discussions. So why wouldn't you want to do something like that? And that is when I pivoted, Kumar, right? And then look back. So I think it's important for us to also realize what can we bring into our toolkit and grow. We look at certifications with that lens. A lot of Agilists will look at the next big certification with that lens as well. Well, is there other tools you can bring into your toolkit which are going to help you expand horizontally? Because going down vertically into just one expertise, which is Agile, might not. To your point, with AI coming in, a lot of these jobs become redundant. So then how do you expand your surface area of exposure?
I will say that I've started to use AI quite a lot in my coaching practice to help me be a better coach, right? To use it, and have some agents set up to help me with the classes that I teach, with the clients that I coach. And I think it's helped me see things because there's so much information out there, and when you have more than one client, it's hard to really pay attention to each one individually. And so I started to use it for the last year and a half, 2 years or so, and it's really I'm not on the bleeding edge or anything. I'm not doing crazy things. It's just creating models, creating agents to help me do what I do, so I can do them better. Like an example, I'm teaching a coaching cohort right now, and I use it to analyze the simulations that we go through, the coaching simulations we go through. And I've created some rubrics that I have the agent use to evaluate how they did. And that's amazing. This amazing, sort of pulls insights out of the conversation, things that it would take me a lot of time to spend a lot of time to be able to do that kind of insights generation and analysis to give them something useful. And the first pass is decent, and then I put my spin on it, and I share it with the students, and they're getting tremendous value from that. I think you're right. I think it's about Agilists and whatever walk of life that you're in, to figure out how you can enhance your skills by being the human in the loop. AI is here to stay. It's not going away. And so, people are going to have to learn how to use these skills to their benefit.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just finishing up the thought. I'm like, it's happened. We've always had to reinvent ourselves in this space. I'm looking at it as just another reinvention. Gateway.
I totally agree. And it's tough though, it's like, especially as you get as old as me, like, oh my God, another thing I got to learn, but okay, I'm okay with that.
True. That is true. I've stopped blaming the boomers because I'm turning into one.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am telling you.
So I wanted to switch a little bit to your principles, right? So one of the things that in our conversation earlier, you talked about money not being a motivator, not being as much of a motivator for you. And you mentioned that even in our conversation here so far. And autonomy became everything. Tell us about that. I know you turned down some really lucrative offers overseas. What changed for you, and what do you look for to be happy in whatever role you play?
I think you answered that question initially, right, Kumar? For me, at some point in my career, and I think we all reach that phase gate at some point where money stops being your priority motivator in your career, right? I mean, like I mentioned, probably 16 years ago, I would have changed jobs for $5,000 more. But then eventually autonomy started becoming way more important for me. I remember going into a federal contracting agency really early, right? A few years after Freddie, for a short gig, a consulting gig, and realizing how unproductive the workplace was for me, right? I've always had the mindset where I've always prioritized efficiency over utilization. I'm never trying to maximize utilization for when I'm a people manager for the people who are part of my org. I always want to maximize efficiency. And by that, I mean, I'll give you autonomy, right? I don't care you work from the beach as long as you're getting work done. If I can hold you accountable, you're accountable for your work. I trust and I make sure I'm hiring good people, adults, and you're going to take responsibility for your work. If you're not, then that's a different conversation. And I've started, and then as you keep growing in your career, I think I've come to a point where there are some principles around autonomy for self and autonomy for those who are part of my org, which I would not compromise. And the example which you were just speaking about, the lucrative offer, that was around one of those lines, right? It was for a Swedish company. I interviewed, and the role was very lucrative. The title was wonderful. It was for a CTO for their organization, and I went through like 7 or 8 rounds of interview. I even spoke to the CEO, and things were going great, and the pay was good, and the title was good, and the challenges which I needed to solve were great. And then came my final presentation with their board of directors. I was supposed to create a presentation on 3 cases which had already been solved in the company. So these were real cases, but they wanted to see what my take would have been if they happened while when I was there. And that was one part of that bigger presentation. And I realized while creating that presentation that they were using a tool. And they were, as I researched on that tool, I'd heard about that tool once before in my career, really early on, and it's called Hubstaff. And I kind of knew what it's used for. It's used to kind of do screen recording of employees, and you can really see what people are doing. So it's micromanagement. And I did not want to make assumptions. So when I went to the meeting, I asked the question, I'm like, listen, I'm going to be really upfront. And before we kind of even move into this presentation and I waste your time and mine, I really want to understand what you use it for. And they were using it for that purpose. And I, Kumar, at that very moment, and I'd rehearsed this in my head. So it wasn't like I'd gone there unprepared. I knew that potentially they were using it to monitor people. And I asked them straight up, and I said, would that expectation be that I do the same? And they said, well, yeah, we don't really use it, but we use it when we're noticing that there is a dip in performance to see what people are doing. And I couldn't, Kumar, I couldn't take that opportunity, right? Yeah. It just didn't settle well with me. Yeah. And I told them, I'm like, listen, I've told you, I mean, autonomy is super important. They're like, yeah, we're going to give you autonomy. You kind of create your roadmap and what you want to do in the strategy.
We're going to watch you and make sure that you're being autonomous and productive.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm like, no, it's not going to work for me. So I turned down that offer. A lot of people thought I was crazy. My father definitely thought I was crazy. He's like, you could have just done it, and you could have seen, and you were the CTO, you could have changed it. And I'm like, it's not about that. It's about the mindset. It's about the values of the organization you're becoming a part of, and that's something I hold very dear. When I work with companies, I try and work and through understanding what they stand for. And I will tell you safely, all of the companies I've worked with on my LinkedIn profile, wonderful organizations, right? They value the people. They've put a lot of emphasis on their people culture. It's not human resources per se, right? It's just not numbers. Layoffs and things like that are a part of the greater strategy. They hire genuinely good people who really care about your growth. And I think that's what I hold very dear. More than money is the values and the principles.
No, I think that's a really good principle to live by and to work by, right? And I would ask you this question, because I mean, I'm with you. It totally resonates with me. We shouldn't be doing these kinds of things to our people, and we need to treat them like people, not like horses. You know, like you put a carrot in front of them and put blinders and say, "Here's your reward. Go do the work." Right? People are not horses. People are people. However, the argument, though, to be made, I think, by proponents of this type of technology is, well, you know, they're all remote, and how do we know they're doing the work? I mean, you kind of answered in your description leading up to rejecting the offer. But how do we know if they're working, because they're remote? I mean, they could be doing anything, you know. And we want to bring them back in the office, but that's not going to work because people are going to just quit. And so this is a good middle ground. What would you say to them?
I've got my own conspiracy theory in this whole return to office part, Kumar, okay? I'll table that one up for the goofy part of the conversation.
Okay.
But when it comes to your initial part of the question, right? How do we make sure people who are remote are working? I will tell you how I make sure of that. Whenever I can control hiring, I like to hire, and I'm not even going to mince words when I say this. I'm too old to be politically correct anymore anyways. I would rather hire one really solid person than to hire 2 or 3 mediocre, talented people. And the reason I say that is because it makes my life easier. I am going to trust that you're an adult. And if I've given you as your leadership or as your team lead or as your peer, you've been assigned a task and there's a timeline attached to it. And that's up to me. That's up to leadership, right? To make that path clear of what is the expectation, what needs to be done, and when it needs to be done by, right? And if that data has been provided to you, I'm going to go forward first with the assumption that you are going to do it, right? And I think it is important to have that kind of trust in your people. Move decisioning where the knowledge is very important for me. And I've always tried to stick to that principle. I am not going to be making design decisions or architecture decisions when I've hired you specifically as a solution architect to do that. Okay, that's one. 2, if you do start feeling that a person is not working, then you have a conversation with them. I will give you an example. I was with a company where I was brought in as a lead, and it was a government consulting program. And I was specifically asked that people on that team had to be at the client side for 8 hours a day, starting 9 o'clock in the morning. We had hired a really solid developer who was a superstar. Okay, he was just wonderful, but he had a newborn baby. And he had a request, and he said, listen, I'll come to the office every day, but I can't stay for 8 hours. My wife had a C-section. I have a 1 week old, 2 weeks old child. I need a little bit of flexibility. I went to the leadership and I put over the case. I don't think we need seat warmers any which ways. I mean, that person is reputable. They're able to do their job. Why cannot we be humane and have that flexibility? that didn't work with the leadership. Guess what happened, Kumar? That person left. They waited for a month, they found a job, and they left. And the project lost a really, really good resource, right? A really good person. So I think it's very, very important that we trust the goodness in people. We move in with the assumption that they're adults, they're not seat warmers. We give them autonomy to function. And of course, you've got principles where, of course, you've got to be in the office X amount of days. Now, most of the companies are in a hybrid structure. We respect that, but we also keep the doors open for conversations. At the end of the day, it's not the tools which make companies and projects successful, it's the people. And people are at the heart of it. So if you are going to ignore them, you're not going to succeed. Not as a leader, not as a program, not as a project, not as a strategy.
Yeah, I love everything you said. I'm in violent agreement with them. And I wish more companies would adopt this strategy. I mean, a lot do. A lot have the intent to follow things like this, but culture and hierarchy many times get in the way of that. But that's probably a larger conversation, and that's where people like you, people like me come into play, where we try to change that, right? So change the reward models, change how we evaluate people, and give them the autonomy and freedom to do their best work. So for sure, I'm in violent agreement with that. I want to shift to something you mentioned before, that you've had lots of really great mentors in your life, mostly people that you worked for, and I think in many cases. And you wrote a blog post for Women in Technology about something most people don't discuss, outgrowing your mentors. Tell us about that, and how do you know you've outgrown them, and what is your strategy for how you look for your next mentor?
So I'll tell you how I came to this realization, right? I remember when I got I tried to get into this whole mentor-mentee thing about 10 or 12 years ago. It's been more than 10 years now. And when I proposed to one of my skip level leaders that I wanted them to be my mentor, she actually told me, she said, okay, let's have this session and we'll have it at a cadence. And, you should come to me with questions, right? For a first meeting, come to me with 5 questions and we'll have it that way. And I said, great, and I started doing that. And then after 3 or 4 sessions of, 3 or 4 months, I think, I started running out of questions. I was like, what do I do? Well, what am I going and asking her? And I would go in there and she would say, do you have any questions? I'm like, yeah, no, I'm doing this. And then I would start presenting her with things I've started to do and the strategies I'm using, and ask her what her thoughts might be. And then I switched jobs and I got a new mentor. And I started realizing that I had outgrown my previous mentor, because when I took them on as a mentor, I had a goal, an objective, which I wanted to meet. And they helped me bridge that objective, right? They helped me guide and strategize my path towards that objective. And when I did get there, everything they had to share, they had shared through their journey, right? Their journey was still ongoing. It hadn't stopped. But whatever they could have shared with me to get me to a point, I had that information. I had that handy. And also, I had outgrown that particular space. And a lot of people don't realize this because there are so less tools on elongated or long established mentor-mentee relationships, and like tools on the internet or articles on the internet, that you don't find them, right? People talk about mentors a lot. People don't talk about having multiples, or the fact that they were a mentor and they're no longer a mentor. I realized that. So that is something I came to a realization. And I have been lucky where I've had people through different parts. Like there was a point when I was a new mom and I was really struggling to kind of balance my career with the fact that I needed to be providing for a newborn. I needed a mentor and a career guide, but I also needed somebody who could really understand my situation and get me out of that mindset, right? As opposed to when I started getting into senior leadership, I needed a different kind of mentorship, right?
Yeah.
While I would still hang on to my initial mentor for coaching around women in tech, right? But I also needed somebody who could really help me navigate the technical leadership space, particularly in Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
That was a different person, right?
Yeah.
It's a different, it's generally a different ballgame, right?
Yeah.
And I feel, Kumar, that personally for me, and this might be controversial for a few people, I have never looked at people from the lens of a woman in tech or a man in tech or whoever in tech, right? I've just looked at people in tech.
Yeah.
I've looked at people in consulting.
Yeah.
And when I find talent and I'm like, I really want to learn something from you, I genuinely think there are things which men do very well and women do very well. And I want to learn everything. And that is what I also said in my article, is that sometimes you just go ask. If you really like somebody's style, you don't have to establish, and the mentor-mentee relationship, it doesn't have to be time-boxed or cadence-based, right? It can be a one-off thing.
Yeah.
It can be something you just talk to them once a year. Like I have a mentor from Capital One, and I talk to him once a year. I have lunch or dinner with him still once a year, and I share what I'm doing. And a lot of what I've done in my career since Capital One is all thanks to him, right? He's guided me.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of the people at different cadences and in different times. And I really think it's a very underutilized tool, which is available, which people should really, especially people who are in their mid-career and early career. I'm not in my senior path, so I'm not going to talk about that. But especially for people in their mid-career, it's a great, great resource everybody should tap into, is having a mentor.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it applies to everyone. I don't know how you distinguish between coaching and mentoring, but I have many coaches who sometimes mentor me. Yeah, and sometimes they coach me, and it sounds like it's the same with you with
absolutely.
Because so I totally agree, and you do outgrow your mentor. So I think that's really a great thing to share with the audience, that we all need that from time to time. And for me, I've relied on my mentors and my coaches throughout my career, and I still do. So hopefully that's a good takeaway for people watching. We're running short on time. I've got so many more questions I want to ask you, but I'm going to end with a few fun questions that maybe you're not expecting. I don't know. We'll see. You
put me on the spot, and then I'll say something weird, Kumar.
There you go. I want weird. I want as weird as possible. Okay. Best career move you almost didn't make?
Capital One.
Oh.
I almost didn't make it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I can explain. So I had originally interviewed for a position in Capital One, which was parallel to the one I eventually ended up getting into. I cleared all the rounds. I spoke to the hiring manager. Everything was going great. And then I spoke to the VP, and the VP and I rubbed the wrong way for that particular team. And I have a very short circuit. And I was like, you know what, this is shit. I'm just not going to do it. And of course, the VP must have given that feedback to the recruiter. So when I spoke to the recruiter, she's like, what happened? Like, this is unheard of. This never happens in Capital One hiring, right? And I said, yeah, I don't think it's going to work. And I ended up accepting a job offer over in Amazon. And a week later, Capital One came back, and they said, the recruiter came back, and she's like, hey, by the way, there's another team which really went through your interviews, and the VP is really interested to talk to you. And it's not going to be the full interview, it's just the 30-minute meet and greet. Do you want to talk to them?
Yeah.
I was like, whatever. I was so heartbroken. And I ended up talking to the VP, and that VP was Raghu Valluri, who's also my mentor, and has been ever since. And we ended up talking, and I was like, do I have to give back my bonus at Amazon, my hiring bonus? I'm going to this place. I almost didn't make it. And I did return my sign-up bonus to Amazon, and
It just proves the money doesn't matter. It's more about the purpose and the mission and
it is.
Yeah.
I spoke and I was like, wow, this is great. It's a new VP. It's a new team. I'm going to establish everything. It's a problem I have to solve.
Yeah. All right. One last one. Let's see. What should I pick here? I have so many for you, but we're running out of time. The certification you're most glad you skipped. It's probably not the best one, but it's just the one that came to my mind.
Oh my God. I wish you'd asked me this question a year ago. I would have said PMP, but now I have a PMP.
So it wasn't the PMP. You did get that.
It was the PMP. I was so glad I'd skipped it all these years, and then last year I caved in and got it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the PMI is changing. They're becoming a little bit more agile, a little bit more with time.
That certification. I hate it. I've always spoken so much crap about PMPs, and I've always spoken crap about them. And then
now you're like, oh my God, they're actually doing something right.
I know. You go through this and you're like, yeah, this is right. And you're raging on it. And you're like, yeah, whatever.
What happened? What happened to them? And we don't have any, we don't have a foil. We don't have someone to like pound into the ground, right?
Exactly. You need that. You need that. And yeah,
need that. Yeah. All right. One last one. This is an easy one. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
What kind of coffee? Filter, espresso? Black.
French
just
press.
black.
Black French press.
French press.
Nothing else.
Yeah. Lots of caffeine. Yeah. That fits.
Yeah. I don't like the machine coffee. It's very bitter. It's very bitter for me, and I cannot have milk, any kind of milk in my coffee. And I chug it down, like I take shots. So I have to cool it down. Not cold, not ice cold, but just room temperature cold.
Yeah.
And I think French press does the trick for me.
Yeah,
that's French my poison.
Fantastic. I love it. But I'm an espresso guy, so I have like a really expensive machine up there, and I'm sort of a coffee nerd.
The bougie ones. Yeah. Oh wow, the bougie ones.
Yeah.
I'll get you some nice coffee from here when I come, Kumar.
I like the filter coffee in South India, you know, with the chicory in it. It's so good.
Yes.
I love
What is your percentage of chicory? Let me put you on the spot. What's your mix?
I don't know. It's been so long. Probably like, what are the options?
It's like 60-40, 50-50, or 60 coffee, 40 chicory.
60-40.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found a grind here, but it's from Louisiana, which they, you know, French influenced, right? So they have a chicory blend coffee, but it's like 80-20. And so it's like, nah, it's not quite, it's not quite the same as what I remember.
No. Yeah.
All right. Anything that you'd like to share before we end?
I think this was a wonderful conversation. I think to everybody who's listening, don't change jobs just because you're bored. Change it because you're motivated to do something else. Don't be afraid of AI. Embrace it. It's a change. Just look at it as another change. It's hard, but it's not impossible. We're always going to, if AI is eliminating jobs, AI is also going to create new jobs.
Yeah, for sure.
So you've got to look at it with a positive lens.
Every technological revolution in our history has led to job losses and job gains, mostly on the positive side. So hopefully this will be another one of those. Actually, I wrote an article just recently on AI and Agile. So if you have a chance, I'd love your feedback on that.
I would absolutely love to read it. I mean, the only parting thought I have is this generation has lived through a pandemic, a possible World War III. We've seen it all. Y2K, for the folks who remember. AI is nothing. We'll live through it.
Yeah, so nice positive.
We'll get through it.
Yeah, so you're an optimist. Yeah.
I am.
All right.
I am.
It's great talking to you, Reha.
It was wonderful talking to you.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for
Yes,
watching.
likewise.
Yep. Bye.
Take care, guys. Bye.